You'll never guess where I'm calling you from. It's a mountain, though.
Don't laugh
Welcome
at
back.
me.
Welcome back. I'll laugh at whoever I like. You know what? Stop the recording.
And everything.
No, I'm not stopping the recording. Welcome back
You
to
do this
Think
every
Me.
time. Does every video have to start with a comedic botched? Hi there.
Oh, hey.
Let's not do the startled intro.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Super awkward.
Hi.
No, it's not.
Welcome to Red Letter Media.
Oh,
I'm Rich Evans.
and
Hi everyone. I guess this is the actual start. This is Unthink Me. My name's Adam.
we're starting. My name is James, and we have a guest with us today, Andrew.
Silence. Oh, hi.
Hi.
That's Andrew.
That's Andrew. That's all.
That's
Andrew.
me.
Yep.
That's
See you later.
Andrew. Bye. I'll see
Great
you.
show, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do.
Why take the stairs when you've got a perfectly good spaceship? Do a spaceship.
Oh my God.
He's gone. He's gone.
And he's gone.
Okay, so Andrew's played a but somewhat similar role in my life as James. You guys activate my personality. You guys activate my musicianship. You tend to be on the more extroverted side. I pointed out this dynamic, but you guys don't actually know each other.
No.
No.
No. Only in my dreams.
Only in
Only in my dreams.
Both
they
went
must have been
romantic
prophetic dreams.
It's connected.
So one of these days we're gonna figure out the tech so we can have a jam. We all do a cappella improvisation, so I'm kind of eager for that. But I haven't talked to Andrew in 4 years, maybe
At least. Yeah.
So we're all catching up, and I have like 20 or 30 people that would be on the docket for the show, and Andrew was around. He said, "Yes, let's do this." That's your name, right, Andrew?
Short-term caller.
That is. You got it right. We've only known each other for 10 years, 8 or 9 years, only 10.
Let's do this. So the moment I knew that I loved James, it happened very quickly.
Oh.
I was a judgmental kid, and I'm still a judgmental person, but I'm aware of it and have control. But I didn't like when I just saw James, I was like, he doesn't matter. He's not an important person.
Fuck this guy.
That's kind of how I was with everyone that I didn't already know.
Looking into the mirror.
But I was invited to Bobby's trampoline sleepover, which was an exciting prospect for me. These were a bunch of new kids that I didn't know. And I went over there, and the hook, for some reason, at some point, James just pointed at me and stared at my face. It was just like, ha, 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 and he was just laughing like a maniac, and he did it for a really long time, uncomfortably. And I realized how cool that was, how much I wouldn't do that, and I really admired it, and it was hilarious. And it was just from that point on, we were just goof buds. The whole party was ridiculous. We were kind of invited and kicked out at the same time. And this was a recurring theme. They made us sleep outside in the cold. It was all
10 years.
It was all Jake. It was so Jake. And then Andrew, I was in Portland, and I had gotten in a small automobile accident. I'm pretty sure this was the first time I met you. It might have been the second.
It was the second.
But it was when we connected, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so I was traumatized because I was just driving and I hadn't latched my hood correctly. So straight up out of Tommy Boy or whatever, it fucking flew up. My immediate thought, it was this. I'm driving, there's a loud sound, and something falls from the ceiling. My immediate assumption is that a van has pulled up behind me and they're firing shotguns at my car. That was my
party. Oblivions.
And I learned about myself that I should be a surgeon, but for later. But in the moment, I was just okay, there's a man firing a shotgun at me right now. I was perfectly calm. I was like, what should I do? Well, I can't see anything, so I'm gonna decelerate and feel the gravel underneath me and slow down. And I managed to stop. And then I like got out of my car and I was like, holy shit, because I probably died, but just somehow I didn't hit anything. I didn't skid into traffic, and everything turned out fine. And so then I show up at this music venue, and it's like Andrew and his sister, and they're doing this like amazing, like like it's a worked out song, but there's like all this improv in it, and it's just like the goofiest, like dancey, happy thing I've ever seen in my life. And they're both just like dialed down to 11. And then when they're done, they're interested in me. Like they come up and they're talking to me and they find me like fascinating, and we're like singing together and telling jokes immediately. Like there's just like this immediate humor chemistry. With Andrew, like I had this like immediate sense of like an emotional depth that's like rare in people, and like an authenticity and genuinity that like I was just like, okay, this is a tribe member or whatever. This is like a quartet, the soul tribe member. Like, I think we both kind of recognized that pretty immediately.
We did, and you're right. Actually, that was the first time we met. I forgot that happened beforehand, because that was the very first time that we met
each other. Yeah, like
which is kind of connected to like some of the stuff you talk about in your channel, where when you're like operating on a certain frequency, right, which could be connected to those levels, right, those different hierarchies.
Absolutely.
You can kind of feel, right? Like, cause like the moment I saw you, it wasn't just the performance that you did. There's something in the energy that was, and I get it once in a while. It's not super rare, but it's more rare than, the amount of people that I meet, where it's just like, oh my God, that person is like me. Like for some reason I can feel there's something there that's similar, and we're going to get along really well. And that it's kind of funny how that worked out. Me and Gabby both, right after we met you, we both talked about that a lot. We were just like, why was he so unique? Why did we enjoy him so much? What was the characteristics? What about it?
Same frequency.
Yeah. One gestalt, like one frame of reference I would point out is around the second tier move, around the move to the teal meme or yellow meme in Spiral Dynamics. There's this sort of burgeoning, dawning ego awareness. So it's like whatever I am, whatever my consciousness is actually aware of the atom system and what it's doing, and I'm seeing it and I'm reacting to it. I think that's the thing that I tend to recognize and value is ego aware. Like you can be egoic and narcissistic and all that, but all these cats, all you guys, you're doing it, and there's a comfort in that. You guys know that I know what I'm doing. You guys know that I've been here all along and I'm watching. I think there's like for me, there's a security in that. And it's like, I get the sense that like we act like asses, and we know, and even if in the moment we eventually will know that we were acting like an ass. Yeah. And it maybe not even communicate it, but it's just like, I trust that. I trust people who can see themselves.
Yeah. There's something to be said. There's something to be said about, cause I've also been trying to like analyze this, like, this thing that like allows me to be more comfortable and vulnerable, as well as like just connect with people. And if I were to, reduce it to something simple, I think there's some area of denial in their self, right? Again, not that we know everything about ourselves. I'm constantly learning. I'm not making that claim, but there's something about a willful denial, meaning like some information has been presented to them, and they chose in that moment to say, I don't care if that's real. I'm going to pretend it's not. And then they present it to you, kind of thing. And again, that just happens way less often with people that I connect with, like you, where I don't notice that at all. It's just like, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I know this thing about me, that whether I like it or not, it's there. I'm aware of it.
There's an analogy that I think I came up with it. I like it. It's trying to get a cat to see itself in the mirror. You can point its face, you can make its eyes see it, but it doesn't. Here's the thing about the cat. It doesn't have an ego. It's not it doesn't think of itself as a cat. So when it sees a cat in the mirror, it doesn't care. It's not interested in a self. That's just okay. It doesn't smell like anything, and it's doing everything I do, so it's not interesting. Whereas you show a caveman a mirror, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's what I am. That's me." Like no animal will do that. They don't like. If anything, they'll be like, "Can I fuck that?" Like,
yeah.
Is that edible?
Is that another thing? Do I need to fight it? Do I need to fight or fuck it? Yeah, that's funny. That
when I'm dealing with this mechanic, that's what it feels like. It's trying to get a cat to see itself in the mirror. It's not that they're being like arrogant or willfully obstinate or anything like that. It's that they're not seeing the thing. They're not seeing the system. They're acting through it. They are it, but they're not outside of it seeing it. And so it's so frustrating because you want to say language and you want to say, well, look what you're doing right now. You're acting this way. You're saying this. I'm not putting any spin on it. This is just literally what's happening if you wrote it down or said it out loud. And then, no, but you don't understand. That's not ego aware. Like,
yeah, there's something too about that you just touched on too about something I've met in our mutual friend, regardless of whether
I might bleep his last name because he has not given me consent.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
We would certainly love him on the show.
Yeah. I just spent, it was cool. I hung out with him recently, but there's also a willingness that regardless of whether it affects our ego and we feel emotional about it, whether we enjoy the input, there's something where we're kind of, I'm grateful when people point out my flaws and when people point out things that I'm unaware of, right? So again, like I might get emotional, I may walk away from the moment, but always I come back to looking, I reevaluate and I reflect on that moment and I go, they're right. They're right about that. Whether they're right specifically isn't as important, but there's something about that's important to me and that behooves me to take in that information and actually contemplate what that means, because your observation of me is always going to be clearer than my own observation of myself because of all the biases that exist up here. Yeah. So it's something that I value. And I think that's also that might be an even more unique thing than just that energy connection, that vibration, that kind of is a good marker to be like, hey, this is like really unique. And that I find even less often than that connection that I mentioned earlier. It's just this willingness to be like, hey man, tell me how it is. It's okay. Be polite about it, but let me know if I have something that I'm unaware of, a blind spot that I can't see. Look at the reflection of yourself in the window. Don't look at the trees outside the window. And they just can't understand that. Some people are just like, I don't see a reflection. I see the trees. And they're like, no, I know you gotta relax though and look at your reflection. They're like, there is no reflection. It's like, there is one. It's just not as visible as the trees are.
Andrew, do not look at the finger that points to the moon, or you will miss out on all that heavenly glory.
was that in one of the videos you made?
Guys, I think it's Enter the Dragon.
I feel like
something. Yeah.
there was that reminded me of one of the videos we made back in the day, like the music videos with like Jurassic Park and stuff.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's a movie called Jurassic Shark. I just needed that. Well, wait, I don't know if we ever followed up on this. James, did in Meg 2, did Statham what was the verdict? Did he develop empathy or a love relationship with the megalodon?
What happened was the people tuning in is when Meg 1 came out. Before I watched it, I
already know this. I'm gonna go grab a coffee.
Yeah. So I was with my roommate. He really wanted to watch it. I was indifferent, and I was like, all right, if Jason Statham does not hand-to-hand combat this megalodon, I'm never watching another one of these. And it did not disappoint. And so in this one, in Meg 2, my premonition, my line in the sand, I'm never going to watch another one unless the megalodon had some sort of emotional attachment to its handlers. Like it could be trained or anything like that. It's a prehistoric make-believe thing now, but it's a killing machine. And so if it can develops feelings, I'll keep watching. And Meg 2 did not disappoint.
Oh, that's funny.
I can't wait to watch the podcast and hear
so he hand-to-hand combat and it develops feelings.
That's right.
Of course, two things.
What would that be? It would be like the red meme for hand-to-hand combat and lack of self feelings, like putting yourself in harm's way. Is that a meme? Or is that something else?
That sounds red meme. Yeah, I mean, probably your Jason Statham's going to be really, really solid in the red meme, which we always think of red meme as bad news because of the world that we live that's all baby-proof.
That's conquering Roman Empire.
Yeah.
I think of that.
You're a bad guy, but I'm a badder guy, and I'm going to stop you from doing bad to these fine people so that I'm in control of things.
But I got a big ass stick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me in my development, like red meme is definitely has been the neglected or the bastard child.
So is red meme
third?
Is red meme about like is it connected to or correlated with kind of moving forward and like taking and like fighting kind of thing?
So red meme, the big achievement of red meme is ego. You are now a self, and you have needs and desires, and you can, like, in a child, this is where you see them really challenging their parents and being like, no, I don't want to. I want to do this, because you're learning to be, because before that, the parent was the god. Like, you beg the parent for things, you plead for things, but they're getting to the point now where they're like, well, wait a minute, I can trick my parent and get the things. Like, I have agency, I'm capable here. So it's a really positive development. Of course, as a fixation, it becomes narcissism, and it becomes bullying and genocide. So that's what red memes kind of, it becomes impulsive, narcissistic, and it's characterized by selfishness, because you literally don't have a concept of other people. You've just formed a concept of self. That's what your big achievement is.
Would you say, though, that the positive side of that too is that it does kind of push us to it's also a part of like our drive for like autonomy, in the sense of like going out and getting what we want and like really trying and like putting ourselves out there?
Absolutely. The reason it's spiral dynamics is this supposed oscillation between, in what's called in Taoism, yin and yang energies, or masculine and feminine energies, or masculine as a drive towards agency, which is what you just said, and feminine as a drive towards communion. And so a focus on the collective quadrants for the feminine, and a focus on the individual interior quadrants for the masculine. So the magenta brings you into the feminine. It's all about the group dynamic. The red brings you into the individual with the formation of the ego. So it's very individualistic. Then you go to amber, very group, conformist membership group. Go to orange, very individualistic, rational achiever, competitor. So it's individual. So it goes back and forth. And it's, I kind of see it as more like, the masculine and feminine co-emerge, but so they're actually, they're not necessarily on top, but they're kind of like adjacent. And the masculine will express itself first in culture because of the patriarchy, or, the pattern.
Yeah.
So you see the masculine first, and then the feminine, and then the new masculine, the new feminine system. That's a different way of seeing spiral dynamics. Instead of boom, 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 you just kind of did it, two parallel levels. So definitely the red is that drive back towards agency. And then if you don't swing back to communion, you'll be fixated there. You'll be stuck there.
Which is hence why that the yin and yang has been such a fixation for, like, many cultures, right? It's because not only are they both considered in union, right? That's the balance, but even a bit of each one of them is inside the other, driving it. Because that spirals move, and the dots of each are kind of the one that are pushing and leading the other. It's kind of a strange,
and you're in medicine, they call it, I think, caduceus. It's like the two intertwining serpents with like the staff in the middle. That's the helix. That's the spiral, masculine and feminine. The serpent is Kundalini. It's the energy of the human spine, and the chakras, the levels themselves, vertical stages of development, culminating in enlightenment through the crown. The serpent is the anal. It's a serpent is an anus connected to a mouth. Like, that's what, or a worm, an annelid is a better example of that. But a snake, as a higher animal, it's kind of just an anus connected to a mouth. So it's a very Freudian creature, and it's basically the first and last chakra. It's a representation of that. So the serpent has always represented like forbidden wisdom, the new understanding and integration that creates a new chaos from the former order. So right there in biblical stuff, in old-timey like lore, you have this representation of the serpent. And to this day, the medical establishment uses the serpent, the Kundalini serpent, intertwining masculine and feminine in an ascending pattern. That's the fucking medical profession that puts that image out. That's a beautiful thing. Like, they're integral. They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
first do no harm.
I think this points out that exact point, and we could, I could probably highlight countless things in society and in life in general, that are connected. It just points out the truth, right, of those things, that they're kind of rephrased in so many different cultures, so many different areas of study. Even ones that claim to be like the opposite still have a version of it. You know what I mean? And it's just because it's real. It's like that. If there's anything that tells a truth in the world, right, out of all the stuff that we can be bogged down, all the details, all the skepticism, there's no way to deny something that is that repetitive and that connected. You know, it's like, that's the truth, man.
The funny thing about, like, I think particularly like orange and green meme is they kind of have this, well, I'd say green meme more than anything is like every single iteration of green memes, like, oh, I'm not like all those other guys. Like, I'm not green meme. Like, I don't, I'm different.
Yeah. Which is the function of it, right? It's like,
individuality, uniqueness, self-expression.
It's like, you realize you're proving that you are right now.
Like when you say, you can't label me, that is a green meme expression. Don't label me. Like, that's just a label. Like, I don't take your
I'm such a non-conformist.
Yeah. That's again, that's another point to like how it's like you can't escape it, even, right? Even if you tried to deny it, you are still entering into this category by doing so.
James, I think you just found our secret ingredient is spiral dynamics of South Park.
Yeah, that was a South Park quote.
Oh shit, Simpsons already did it.
Oh yeah, it's already did it. They've done everything. Oh shit.
We're pulling guns out.
Oh, we got guns? I got a telepathic gun.
It's just my car.
Let's mill Andrew a little bit here. Andrew, what do you do for work?
Yeah, so I work in a behavioral health facility out in Ohio, and I do group education. So I basically work with patients that are experiencing, the majority of them are experiencing major depressive disorders or suicidal ideation. And but I also deal with schizophrenics and borderline personality disorders. And I'm basically there for two things. One is to counsel them on better coping skills and just better functions of life in general, which usually boil down to the basics like health and eating well and sleeping. But I'm also there for safety with nonviolent intervention, as well as just kind of de-escalation.
Like one observation that I come up with, and that is like dealing with those. I am so sympathetic, I would say, that when I deal with people in a state of mania, it like infects me. So I have to like stay away from them. And so do you feel like some of that stuff kind of absorbs to you, or you've developed a sort of professional shell against it?
Yeah, so it definitely,
like what do they call it? Compassion fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in a neurological perspective, our mirror neurons make it impossible for us not to, right? So it's the reason why you gravitate towards the center. It's not really possible. Anybody who claims
what's the mirror neuron thing?
It just when we observe, we're able to learn, right? So we learn from observation almost as effectively as we learn from doing. In some cases, even more, surprisingly. Yeah. So that function alone, it means that you can't, people that claim like, oh, I'm not affected by these bad people in my life, let's say, they're deluding themselves. It's not possible.
So the neuronal pattern will mirror the knowledge that it's taking in, is kind of the idea. Like it just sees and replicates pattern, kind of.
Yeah, basically, and obviously your prefrontal cortex has the ability to override some of these logics. Like just because you see somebody committing violence doesn't mean you're going to get violent in that moment. But over time, because there's so much nuances that are absorbed through those mirror neurons, that some of those subtleties get integrated into our personality and our understanding of the world around us that we can't even understand, right? It's just too complex for our,
interesting.
So our prefrontal cortex, in order to override those things, has to be able to identify. So obviously I see a guy being violent with or a guy or girl being violent with someone else. I don't necessarily want to be violent in that same way, but something about that situation is taken into me, right? And the best way, there's positive coping skills and adaptive coping skills versus maladaptive ones help us overcome those things more. But again, the amount that we take in eventually will overwhelm us. So it's basically the argument to where I don't care if you drop Jesus into the center of a bunch of criminals and rapists, he's going to come out with a lot of negative side effects because of it. I don't care how divine this person is or how powerful he is. And that's where you go back and say, well, of course, Jesus, when he got to that moment, he would immediately remove himself. That's what makes him Jesus, right? It wouldn't be that he would resist. It would be that he would go, oh, I'm going to leave this situation, right? He kind of says it in the, not to get biblical, but he says in the idea of like, keep them, I'll bring you to my porch and I'll feed you, but I'm not going to invite you into my house.
And so, I think you're talking not like physically, but more just like my heart is with God, and that I feel protected in that. And so I don't get into these kind of codependent things with these people that are crashing on my couch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this comes back full circle to the initial question you asked, which is, yes, one is experience, right? So I've developed an ability to recognize these things so often through experience that my prefrontal cortex automatically overrides a lot of these mirror neuron like lessons, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention the separation. There's a glass wall between me and them because I am the clinician treating them and helping them versus them being that, as opposed to like if my best friend was a manic and I had to hang out with him, he would have a greater effect on me than any manic that I meet in the clinical field,
right?
Or the clinical perspective.
A little bit,
so,
yeah.
But again, also that's where burnout comes in, right? Is that it is true that if you don't have regular practices and regular coping skills and adaptive qualities that help you overcome these lessons that are being taught to you, meaning if I didn't work out and I didn't take care of myself and I didn't have the experience of understanding that, then yeah, it would be a lot easier. I see a lot of people in my same profession taking on those qualities because of how much they work and because of how little they actually practice good health and good behavior in their own personal life. That I want to be like, hey, you're like this close to being in here, but you just don't know it yet. You just don't know it yet. And
I'm this close. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, because we're all like, we're one decision away from being in that situation.
100%.
That's why I try to empathize with the patients too. And the clients that I work with is that, because empathy is a big deal. Not to go on a tangent on that, but empathy is a big deal when it comes to feeling accepted and actually wanting to get better skills and to like having the passion and desire to, when you feel like you're not alone and when you feel like other people do struggle with this, you're more likely to then go, okay, well, maybe I can fix it then.
Yeah.
I try to convey to them that, hey man, I'm like, I may look like I got it all together, but literally something could happen tomorrow and I could be worse off than you ever were. You know what I mean? It literally is that easy. It's that trauma, things that happen to us, they can completely rewrite this. And then what, any power our prefrontal cortex has to override that stuff can be just completely, taken away.
I've seen all three of us go crazy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're not fooling anybody.
Now, and again, this goes back to the very beginning of what we talked about too, right? Is that the quality that makes us, and it could be related to IQ. I'm not trying to say that people with lower IQs don't have the capability, but
it's
because
alienating. Yeah,
it is.
Low and high, and
yeah, no, it's totally related, and we are capable. I think that it obviously helps when you have just better skills and just things like that. But you got to be careful in the long run. Everything needs a balance, right? Anything that happens in your life, you should be doing things to balance it out. And I think that overall, to bring it back to that idea, I think that we don't have a lot of that, especially nowadays. It's so much easier. Instead of developing adaptive skills, it's easier just to go, I could also just watch, YouTube and like, or I can also watch, Netflix for 6 hours and forget about it. And it's like, you're not forgetting about it. You're not forgetting about it.
I mean, I approve. Do that. That's fine.
It is fine. It is fine for like coping, but it's analogous to an island. Like imagine like a problem occurs in your life or an issue, something that's maladaptive, something that's going to actually affect you later on. Maybe it messes with your self-esteem and your confidence and it prevents you from doing a lot.
According to your own values too. Yeah.
Well, it produces negative symptoms. Like you want to be successful, you want to have a good relationship, but for some reason, this thing that happened and your inability to recognize it is actually causing problems to prevent you from getting those things, right?
So whether it be horizontal in orange meme drive for status, success, achievement, relationship, and it's being thwarted by my lower development, my ego, my fitting in stuff. And this has been a theme in every single episode: connection, empathy, understanding where people are coming from. Every single episode has had that come up.
Yeah, and because it's so true, right? It's so true, and I think that what's important is not only recognizing that, like, okay, this level down here is what's affecting, like the things in this level down here, is also identifying what about those things in that level are creating symptoms that are negatively impacting me in any way, whether it's like my health, whether it's like my ability to move forward, and that's why it's important to. It's okay to binge on Netflix sometimes when you want to. It's kind of a survival instinct, right? Like
regression in service of ego. Yeah,
exactly. Like back in the day when you were hunting, let's say you're hunting for food, right? And this is something I like to equate everything to evolution because it's been around for so long. The reason why we have these mechanisms are there for a reason, right? You're hunting. Evolution. exactly. You're hunting with your partner, right? And they get killed. Right in the middle of the hunt. But if you don't continue to hunt and get the food, you're going to die of starvation, right? Yeah. So you have to, in the moment, you have to deny that they died in order to stay emotionally sound,
and
so you can continue hunting.
And that their body isn't appetizing to you, maybe.
Exactly. Exactly. But the thing that we forget about is, right, one thing that's really important is that later you do need to look back on that and understand and digest that grief and that understanding. Otherwise, it will transform into something dark.
100%. And it's all stored, yeah.
And I see it as an island, right? That moment that partner got killed, this island was created, right? And it's right next to your boat. You're traveling through the ocean, and it's got so much detail, right? And you may be like, I don't want to look at that island right now because it's going to prevent me from continuing on in this ocean to find this, my true destination. But the longer you ignore that, the further the island gets away. And the further it goes away, the less detail you see. So that when you finally look back, and that's what trauma is, right? It's been suppressed for so long that this island is almost, you can't even see it anymore. So now you're trying to understand what's on the island without any visuals of what it is, right? And that's where therapy comes in. Yeah. So it basically, long story, well, not short, but pretty long. It comes back to, it's an argument for why it's okay to have these things, but we do need to look at the island as soon as we're capable of doing so, right? As soon as you're away from that emotional thing and you've eaten the food and you're like, okay, I'm done now. I have some downtime. Now let's not do the Netflix. What can I do that's actually going to help me see the details on that island?
Totally. I want to follow it up, but I want to bring in a little bit of integral too. The island it sounds like what you'd call an integral, an allergy. So you have these lower parts of yourself that have become alienated to you. They're not even me anymore. This whole thing where I get all bent out of shape whenever I see people kissing, it's out. I don't even know what it is. It's just, what the hell? I'm like, you don't see what you're doing that's producing this strong negative reaction. But of course it's you doing it. It's like, there's not someone else causing it. It's not, you're like, if you didn't see those two people kissing, you wouldn't have reacted in that way. So your operating system has this little glitch in it. Now on the point of compassion, so compassion, wherever you're at, you have this sense of compassion that is restricted to the meme that you're at. So to make, instead of 12 stages altitudes, you can reduce it to a 3-stage model. Say that people will kind of, as a young adult, they will be egocentric. That everything they do and say and their behavior in general will boil down to, it's for me, for my comfort, for my immediate needs, because I'm getting my shit together. The next one, you go to ethnocentric, which is me now includes my family, my local groups, my nation, my stuff, my khakis, all my ascribed shit. So my group. So now I'm not just a selfish bastard. We are selfish bastards together. Fuck those communists. Then you get to world-centric. I care about everything that feels, everything that thinks and feels, everything that could be cared about. I care about it. So that's like world-centric. Everyone in the world, regardless of race or color or ideology or gender, status shit, whether we agree with each other. You could be a Nazi, but I still have fundamental. You're a human being. You have dignity. You have a brain that's very valuable and a heart that's very valuable. And to recognize every single conscious entity in the universe needs love, needs to be participating in a positive system, a positive outcome. So wherever you're, unfortunately,
with not caring about anything, you don't understand anything, so you don't care about anything, and then
infrared,
where you understand everything to the point that you don't care about it anymore.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's beyond. So that goes outside of spiral dynamics into the top 4 altitudes, and what you see in the transcendental third tier stages is less and less identification with the self system itself, and instead you're identifying with the total psyche, or you're identifying with the entire reality itself, with the consciousness and objective reality that's occurring. That is what I am. All this other stuff is stuff that I'm looking at.
I would even add to
higher stages. That's cosmocentric, you'd call it. Or, yeah.
I'd say that in that analogy that you just made, James, too, that I would say that the word care could be defined in many ways, which is why they might seem very similar, but there's nuances in whatever that means.
Not caring from not understanding to not caring as in neglect. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't care about this at all. It's that I care so much that it's exhausting, and so it's best to forget.
And you might even realize the futility and or like the lack of usefulness of that. Like maybe in the beginning you didn't care because of that, because of an emotional state, right? Because of just some like, hey, I just don't care. And then as you evolve to that point, you just kind of see the truth and realize that like that's not what's important at that point. So you no longer focus on it anymore. It's like not salient in your mind or something that you're concerned with, if that makes sense.
The attributes of a person that go through these altitudes of development, you can call them lines of development. And one of the lines that's studied, I believe it's Carol Gilligan. She made a hierarchy of levels of care. So care is a level, a line of development which goes through the altitudes. Selfish concern to like concern for your group to concern for the world. And the point was that men and women slightly differ in terms of how they express these stages. Men express them more in terms of agency, rights, and responsibilities. Women may tend to express them more in terms of communion, care, and concern. So for a more female-oriented developmental model, it's less agentic and it's more about a hierarchy of care. As I become more evolved, I care about more people and more things and more matters and have more responsibility for care. So it's not just like, you know, a dick swinging contest. It's about inclusiveness. It's about sensitivity. The higher stages are very squishy and weak, and you know there's reasons why you would want to fixate on the lower stages and the solidity and simplicity and functionality of them.
They're also they're less complex. They're the lower ones too are a little more, especially at least for human minds. It seems like they're a little more easy to see and obtain in a sense. When you get the higher up, it becomes a little more conceptual, and there's a lot of interpretation, and I can see why some people kind of shy away from that.
Every single memeplex pattern was unnatural to human beings until they all got in talking, like having a language, learning a religion, going to school. All this shit is not what a monkey wants to do with itself. So I mean, there's always that fight going on between the infrared Homo sapiens fundamental nature and all this programming that society's inflicting on us, teaching us the altitudes, putting us through the developmental process systemically.
Yeah. I think some of that too comes back to just basic neurology. Again, not to reduce it because there's so much complexity socially involved and intellectually. But a lot of that, you know, when you think about the lizard brain and the developments and the areas of our brain that actually allow us to have these higher thoughts and override a lot of that stuff, they're smaller, they're more recent, you know what I mean? Like as opposed to this core that has been there for thousands of years. And is connected to emotion, which responds quicker than thought. You know what I mean? So there's all kinds of stuff that prevent us from that's the struggle, right? It's trying to
because you're so self-controlled that you have kind of cut off your elan vital, like your human energy, because you're so not a child anymore. But children feel good and they do whatever they want, and that makes them pleasurable and joyful. I think that around this point in your arc, around the kind of second tier move, you're so self-controlled that it's starting to become, like everything on your body's like cable tied on at a certain point, and you're just, it doesn't feel natural. And there's kind of this move through this second tier of becoming less awkward and more just comfortable in your own psyche and your own skin. I think is the move past that transition to second tier.
That's a good. I'm curious too of your thoughts on why. Of course, it doesn't happen to everybody. We're able to get stuck in all kinds of matured stages and different areas of our mind, emotionally and just physically. But why it seems to be correlated with age too, like meaning if as long as you don't have any functionality with your brain that's damaged, any kind of actual physical issue. Even if you don't want to learn these things, you tend to, with age, you just tend to, because maybe it's something to do with the knowing that life is approaching its end, but something where you may not completely, but you're almost forced to experience a little bit of each of those levels as you go through life. You know what I mean?
You do seem to have a little bit of an opportunity for higher stage evolution there, just because your self system's falling apart. So you might transcend out of that, or you might regress out of that, but you're not staying there. You don't have to go home. But you're not staying here.
That's what I mean. Like you may not stay.
Dying.
There's like something like when I hit, because like just from my own experience, and I've at least seen it anecdotally played out in a couple of my friends, like close friends, but like there's certain periods of my life, like especially like in my early 30s to mid 30s, where I could no longer deny whether I cared about things like the environment and things above. Like they were almost forced into me. And then obviously I had an opportunity after like experiencing that to just regress. You know what I mean? I could have just regressed and been like, who cares? You know what I mean? And start over. But I think that might be a point there. Like some of us decide to go, no, there's a reason why I'm feeling this and I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to keep promoting that. Or you can just like ignore it, which is what allows you to kind of go back down. But the truth still remains that level hit me whether I had a choice or not. It felt like I don't think I had a choice to at least feel
identity.
It.
You identify with the screen meme compassion for all for the system and the like. Wait a minute, if we keep doing orange meme, we're going to die. Probably, according to orange meme's understanding of the world, we're going to melt our planet and we're doomed. So green meme comes like, okay, well, wait, can we afford to like not throw all this shit in the ocean for a minute? And orange meme's like, not really.
It's almost like I didn't even have to develop those habits, like those new ones. It's like I was like compelled to like compost. I was compelled to like buy products that I know are better for me and the environment. Like there's something about it where obviously I considered my financial stake because that is also a consideration to those choices. But there was something that was just like kind of compelled me where it was like, hey, a little bit more for this, but it's way better. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And it wasn't something that existed in my, 20s and stuff like that. I just didn't care then. It was just about, well, this is the most efficient way for me financially, so I don't care.
Yeah. As you identify with each altitude, the prior one becomes your new devil. So who you used to be becomes the new bad guy. So green meme hates orange meme. Teal meme hates green meme.
Kids these days don't know how good they have it.
I mean, obviously, all of us have an aversion to amber meme a lot of the time, as like creatives or whatever. I think my biggest like allergy was probably orange. Like when I got to orange meme, rational, scientific, logical, I started cutting off everyone who wasn't at orange meme. Like I just like, oh, okay, there are answers in the world. There's some answers, and anyone who doesn't want to buy into those answers is a fucking moron. That was kind of the orange meme thing. That's the Ayn Rand thing. It's like you either are being reasonable or you are not. There's two types of people in this world. It's one.
I was there for that, right? That was when we were living together. Was that when we were living together?
I was in Portland reading Atlas Shrugged. I was screaming at the bus. It was. This was one of the crazies. This is definitely one of my crazies. It was towards the end in Portland. I would identify myself as actually being crazy. Atlas Shrugged, just briefly. I want to do a whole fucking series on it, but like. It's a 3-part book. The first 2 parts are like the Fountainhead. They're good. They do a good job. The third part is an amphetamine fueled rant that she was so proud of. She refused to let anybody edit it. It is so bad and boring and obnoxious. And it's like you had this perfect book and then you fucked it up with your indulgence, ma'am. But that's the whole point. Like orange meme Ayn Rand, it's correct. It looks great. It's cogent, but Ayn Rand died penniless, on Social Security of cancer. So something didn't work all the way. And we know the answer. It's that orange meme then moves into green meme, which then, like, if you stay fixated and your whole brand is pure orange meme, as solid as possible, well, you're stuck at orange meme. You have plastic in your water. You have you're on drugs. Like.
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of an argument, or that's kind of why it's echoed in all of these like scaffoldings of like hierarchies of any kind. One of the themes I've noticed isn't to identify where, but it's also that it's fluid, that we're actually meant to go through these stages continuously in life, right? And some would say that a healthy depiction of somebody who's doing this would be constantly going through all of them, right? Daily, weekly. I mean, there's different versions of it, even like in long form, years of their life, they're going through different versions of it. But some people would say that one way of noticing that you're kind of stuck is that you haven't like
there's no
cycling through these.
oscillation.
It's
You're
got.
not
I mean,
bumping.
we're water, man. We're fluid. We're the water system.
It's so funny you're saying that too, because so the Wilbur is very specific to call them waves of development, because it goes orange and then a little green and then back to orange and then falling down to amber and then back up to orange. It's a center of gravity. It's you're a wave, you're oscillating, and it gets a little bit higher, a little bit. Sometimes it'll fall back down here. Trauma happens, and sometimes it'll shoot up. Inspiration happens, eros, that kind of stuff. And we've all been, But yeah, it's not pinning things down, forcing things, putting your foot on things. It's like seeing a pattern and going, oh, that kind of looks like orange meme, and oh boy, that really looks like orange meme. Oftentimes, it's really easy to see these patterns like manifesting. And I think Integral, more than anyone, is so big on not having it be like a pigeonholy thing, and to understand that it's not to say, you, Andrew, are this meme. It's like you have all these different lines of development, which are each at their own stage as a center of gravity, also oscillating up and down. So it's an extremely complicated character sheet that we're running. But weirdly, at the end of the day, you can take somebody, the things they say, their sentiments, their behaviors, and you can say, oh, like Adam, he's doing an awful lot of orange, green, and teal. You don't see Adam expressing a whole lot of amber, red, magenta, or any of the third tier currently. So my spectrum is limited there, and that could be allergies, and it could just be focus. But we want to embrace the whole thing. It isn't to go to the higher. It's to say that red meme thing, that low level thing that I alienate, that I don't like because it's associated with abuse and genocide and racism and stuff. That's a part of myself that I have alienated. I have to get back in touch with that. Not as bigotry, but as my own self-confidence, assertiveness, ability to manage situations and deal with aggression, deal with conflict. All that stuff is coming out of red meme, second, third chakra area. And that's often weak in artists and intellectuals.
Yeah, I think a good thing to point out there too is that acceptance, right? Because the cognitive dissonance is created when you're like, we have shame about, like, let's say you do dip it down into the red meme, and instead of accepting that, I'm all of these things at any point in my life, we fight it and we try to deny it, and there's this this unrealistic thing, because something in there knows, hey, I'm all of these things, right? And when we fight against that, we create this tension, this like stress in our minds that can lead to all kinds of stuff. It's almost like micro trauma, you know what I mean? It's like we're denying something. We're pretending that we don't want the grapes, right? We're the clever fox. We're like, I actually don't want those grapes. They must be bitter. But it's like, it's not true. You wanted those grapes. It's okay to accept that you wanted those grapes, and it's okay to accept that you can't get them, so that you can then decide, how can I get them, as opposed to just walking away from the grapes.
That's why beagles love blueberries.
Right now about what you were saying, when life and age sort of forces you to go through these transitions. When you said that initially, I was like, oh yeah, as I get older, I'm more like, fuck it, I don't care about the grapes. And like, oh man, he's so much higher than he was before. No, I just don't give a shit. I understand that, I won't get those grapes in this metaphor.
Yeah.
I can either look at, well, there's an easier way. Oh, I've been fighting, crawling up this steep shimmying up shale incline to get to these grapes. Where if I just say, fuck it, walk away, oh, there's like stairs on the other side. That's what I thought you were talking about, where it kind of forces you through. At some point, you get that sort of emotional fatigue or caring fatigue. And once you give that up, you just give yourself.
See, not to interrupt, but I would see that as actually an adaptive thing, because what it sounds like you're describing to me is stepping back, right? So it's not denying. In the story of the clever fox, the full denial is like literally being like, not only do you say you don't want those grapes, but you walk away, and even if you saw stairs, you just keep walking. You're just like, I don't care. I decided I don't want those grapes. And the reality is, everybody wants the grapes, right? The reality is, the grapes represent like just what we want, whatever that means. It's what we really want, and fulfillment, wholehearted living. It's like, that's the grapes. But when you step back and you go, okay, fuck the approach I'm using, I'm going to step back and put it on a shelf, and I'm going to focus on something else. And you see those stairs, then going back to it, that would actually be a healthy way of that would be reflection. That would just be adapting to the situation, as opposed to just leaving the forest, running away and going, I'm never going back to those grapes again. Then you're stuck in this like limbo of just
you'll get right back
things.
into that situation again.
Mm-hmm.
And you still won't know how to deal with it.
Yep. You'll be, you know what you do is you'll leave the forest and you'll end up in a desert with another tree, and it'll be different types of fruit. And you'll be like, you'll jump again and you'll go, fuck this. And then you develop this habit of always saying, fuck it. And just never looking for the stairs.
Habit. You're practicing.
Then it becomes, then you're practicing like running away from it, as opposed to reflecting. What you mentioned, it sounds like a good, it's like, as long as you realize that after you step back, that it's possible there's another approach. So this isn't working. What if the opposite is true? Maybe I need to walk away from it. Maybe that the way to get the grapes is to actually turn away from the grapes, but there's still a consideration.
Always true too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're dealing
I think
with
using the grapes as an analogy was a bad move for me.
No, you did good.
I don't care because I don't understand, and I understand so much that I don't care. I have ignorance because I don't understand, and then I have ignorance because it's exhausting to care to be so aware. The grapes are excellent, but at the point where you're like, okay, the shimmying up the shale isn't the thing. Yeah, the reflection and then going back, that becomes easier as you get older, because who the hell am I trying to impress at this point?
Yeah. So what you've described is actually a pre-trans fallacy. So that's cool. There's an example of that. So you have not giving a shit. Red meme doesn't give a shit about you. Fuck you. Right? And you have not giving a shit. Green meme, oh, I'm not into that whole fucking conformist bullshit. And then in the middle, you got probably amber meme is the center of giving a shit. Like, God has a plan for you. It is correct. If you aren't doing it, you are wrong. Die. And be tortured forever when you die. So, but those two things, the transcendent thing and the regressive thing, look the same and can both be called not giving a shit. So you have this problem now where people are like, well, I don't give a shit. And you're actually expressing a higher value. But people are like, oh, you're like those red memes. You don't give a shit about anything. You're a waste of space. You're a bum. You're a
Is it $11,000 blank canvas at the art museum versus the $695 blank canvas at the arts and crafts store?
No, it's the ideal shade of white. It's the perfect canvas texture and white. Mark Rothko. That is worth tens of thousands of dollars.
To those two things, like, one, like when you're in your teenage years, you just don't give a shit for the sake of not giving a shit, and then as you get older, you realize some things aren't important.
Oh, that's funny. I hadn't even thought of that. So at Amber meme, not giving a shit can actually be a conformist move. I don't give a shit because I care what everyone thinks. I'm such a non-conformist that I'm actually going to do what everyone's doing.
All right.
I think the reason why you don't give a shit is the thing here, right? The reason why don't you give a shit?
Or giving a shit. Labeling it care is a slippery slope. But not being motivated to better or worsen the situation is has different roots and motivation, I guess.
I think there's value in asking why. I think that's what it comes down to. The why do I not? That's more important than not, whether you do or not.
I was listening to a leadership podcast this week, and it was talking about micromanagement, but it might fit in here. And it says, nobody wants to be micromanaged. True. If you're being micromanaged, is that because lack of faith that you've projected, and that's why you're being micromanaged? The micromanage might be part of the micromanagement. Okay, also true. Then he says, if you think you're a micromanager, ask. If the thought of asking causes anxiety for you, I think you already have your answer.
Yeah. So these questions of why, I in my opinion, when it comes to all of these subjects, if I could be vague, is that we don't, a lot of the times we don't ask enough why. You know what I mean? It's not as important of the result, but why did that result come in our minds? Why did it come because of our life choices? Like, I think that's even more important than the conclusion in some cases. In most, actually.
He goes on to talk about there's zero way, there is an ice cube chance in hell that you know someone's motivation.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's true.
Unless you ask them, you have no idea why they did anything. And they might not either, but you don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's why I stick to asking myself why. I try not to contemplate too much why on others. It seems to lead to a dead end most of the time. It's like asking
Andrew,
why someone doesn't love you. It's like,
Andrew, let's practice. Why did you come on the show?
I mean, basically in a nutshell, it's because I miss you and I wanted to talk to you. That's the real reason.
No, okay.
Yeah.
James,
Now,
why are you doing your facial hair like that?
Because that's how it grows.
That's it?
Yeah.
Is that everything?
Yeah.
You are like arch cholo, man.
There's a painting of
Did you see my nasty ass shit?
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah, I don't like beards on me.
14th great grandfather saying
I had a situation where I'd get a meal out of it if I had a beard, so I kept that thing on for a minute. Sorry. Okay, ask me a why question.
Why are you?
You don't have to.
Well, I was going to say why did you decide to choose this outlet to like project these ideas and then the stuff that you've been talking about?
I don't have the time or resources for longer form videos, so I felt a little constrained because that was my original plan. But it actually, again, it's not a trap. It's a cleverly disguised opportunity. This is a lot easier to do. You can get a lot more material out. And I'm finding that it's more entertaining for me as my own audience, I suppose, when it's a bunch of people with different perspectives and personalities. I think it works a lot better. So I felt like I don't have the time or energy to write or do like serious video projects or be in bands or do like all the stuff I like to do. I just don't, I have other priorities and I can't really do anything serious. So I was like, well, what can I do? Because I want to do something. I don't want to not have any outlet. And it kind of came around to this idea like, well, whether I have any outlet or not, I'm going to stay up till 3 a.m. writing these things about philosophy, like a piece about time or a piece about water fluoridation or, reptilian aliens or whatever. I'm doing that either way. So if I can take those ideas and like, okay, here's our topic. We're going to talk about freaking time dilation or Cube Zero movie or that it's like already kind of happening on its own. I have the community already. That's one of the things I really have in life is this community. And I'm a generator of like philosophical gestalts, I suppose, or like topics for a podcast. And I don't have to do a lot of work. Like I already know how to talk into a microphone reasonably well and how to like broadcast and all that. Like there's a little work to be done with the whole thing, but it seems like a really effort to output. It's pretty satisfying. Like we get some response to our stuff. And it's, oh my God, our audience, I think just because it's a lot of integral people and people like arriving at second tier, they're the best audience. Like they're very affirmative. They leave long, detailed comments that show that they were actually watching and they actually had like questions and concerns. And it's a beautiful community. Like this is why I'm so excited to open things up to like live stream with like live participation and just like, that will really become a focus once we've kind of unpacked all the stuff that we need to talk about in these sorts of group settings.
Let's keep it on the rails. So to summarize, Adam does it to get with it. We get it.
Let's do a sign off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's bookend this.
We're gonna bookend it
and then come right back.
Yeah.
This has been the Unthink Me podcast with special guest host Andrew Grumelot. Are we last naming? Are you
yeah.
Are you a public figure? Yeah, because you're a musician, you're a public figure.
I wouldn't, even if I was. This is something I'd be proud to be a part of. So
awesome. Thank you.
This is to have you on the show. Excellent to meet you. I care about you so much that I don't care anymore. If listen, I praise.
I
love you guys.
Don't give a shit about anything. It's like I've always liked to say, it's like I'm gonna write those things. I'm gonna talk to my friends about philosophy either way. If I can structure it a little better and maybe turn my energy up a little higher and then have other people experience it too, I think it's a really great gift to give out because I think we have really interesting conversations. Hopefully other people feel that way. I mean, I'm sure everyone feels that way about their own shit.
With the right editing, anything could be a banger.
Well, yeah. Right? Hey, if you're an editor out there, get in touch.
This has been inspiring for me. I actually, it's funny that when I saw you post your first few videos, we kind of were unknowingly sharing the same like thought pattern because I almost did exactly what you're doing.
I think you've been on a similar course, actually.
I almost, if it wasn't for school full time, I probably would have poured more energy into it. But I almost, because I was looking for that outlet, and when I have stimulating conversations like this, they teach me a lot about myself and help me unpack ideas that I can't do otherwise. Right, I have to get it out and bounce it off people like you. And I almost did it for just that reason, but meetups kind of took the place of it. I host meetups and have like group discussions that are almost exactly like this around subjects related to psychology and like social work and stuff.
And we've it seems like, I don't really know, but it seems like we've had a really like kind of parallel experience just based on like monitoring each other's Facebook, like the sort of things that we've like fixated on and the sort of processes that have like exploded out. So it looks kind of similar. It's kind of neat. But we've been doing it completely like not like, we kind of had like a falling out and just kind of didn't really like interact for several years. And it's like, it's just kind of funny. It seems like we were off doing similar things during that time.
Yeah, I think it just yet again to full circle to the beginning of the conversation. Yet another what speaks about the truth of certain things in the world are these things that we come to, these conclusions that are even apart from anybody else. It makes sense that we would be pursuing the same interests because of how important it is.
We have similar problems.
Yeah, which, you know, I equate to the human condition in general. So I would go as far as to say that all of us have these problems. We're just not recognizing them. Well, we're not identifying them.
What we have in common is recognizing these as the problems, like which they probably aren't. But this is for those of you who focus on this altitude. Check out our show.
Exactly.
Well, that's a hell of a bookend. James is gonna say, "Well,
sounds like it's about time to hit that old D trail."
Yep.
Stick around, Andrew. We're gonna take a quick 5 and be right back.